Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. Dada, with a WWE WrestleMania 41 week bonus edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and on this episode, we will be discussing conversations that were had with John Cena, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Paul Levesque, and Nick Khan. We will also be doubling back to some additional thoughts ahead of WrestleMania that perhaps did not make it into our WWE WrestleMania 41 Ultimate Preview that is currently sitting in your podcast feed and waiting for your earholes if you have not already lent them and consumed that level of performance-enhancing audio. Vintage Chris Vanini will be joining momentarily to break all of this down, but before we get to him, Silver King's got to get to this. And that is a reminder that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So please, folks,
stop being marks for yourselves and go back to being a mark for me.
Go back to being marks for the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, Vintage Chris Vanini, and the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And we did have one more 5-star review sneak in right before WrestleMania week from Podster8. Great butt. 5 stars. Been a listener since the early days. Great pod. Love the structure and the formula of the show. Both hosts work together well, and I appreciate the keeping to schedules. That's a biggie. My only gripe is the host blocked me on X for defending my country against someone who replied to a totally innocent comment with something nasty, but as a standalone 5 stars, even Dave would agree. Look, I don't necessarily know what you're talking about getting blocked on Twitter. The only people we block on Twitter are those who say something offensive directly to us, or, I mean, it's maybe been 3 people ever. So if you feel like you were unfairly blocked by this account on Twitter, this podcast on Twitter, you can email us, gettingoverpod@gmail.com. Make your case, tell us your username. I'll happily unblock you if you're a reasonable person, but we don't willy-nilly block. We like to have conversation and back and forth with listeners. If you were blocked, you did something pretty heinous. That's pretty much the thing. But nevertheless, I appreciate you still leaving a 5-star review, despite the fact that you're angry over that, if that is indeed something that happened. And Podster8, I'm not going to apologize for the block. You probably deserved it. But again, I'll consider rescinding it. Just go ahead, shoot us that email. But nevertheless, we acknowledge you. And I forgot to play the sound drop when we read that other 5-star review on our Tuesday show. So Podster8 and El Grande American, we acknowledge you.
Acknowledge.
Big acknowledgement right there.
Acknowledge.
That's a fun start to the show, Chris. Just a
well,
random...
the way you read it, I thought we were getting compliments on our butts. So.
Oh, yeah. Great butt.
I was like, great butt. What?
I mean, that has been said about the Silver King and Vintage before, but perhaps not in that context. Let me also just remind you all to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Not only do you get full-length audio episodes if that's your preferred medium, but you also get full-length video interviews. We have 2 up right now with Vic Joseph and Drew McIntyre just from the last couple of weeks. We plan to have a lot more coming up. By the way, this is episode 725 of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. We're going to try to do something pretty special for 750. That includes some additional superstars or just professional wrestlers joining the show. So, make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. And we're posting clips of our interviews as well. So stuff with Becky Lynch and LA Knight, the Street Profits, Drew McIntyre, Vic Joseph, all that's going up. It's taken us a little while to get into the swing of things, but you subscribing and watching our videos, it would mean a lot to us. And we're trying to build that channel, trying to make it into something. And who knows, maybe sooner than later, you'll actually get full-length video podcasts on YouTube. A little bit of a tease right there, potentially. Please also remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
Hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, exclusive news analysis posts every week. We just posted one of those for WrestleMania week, and I'll just remind everyone, we will have a free, whether you subscribe or not, fastest 15 minutes in professional wrestling, a go-home show for WrestleMania 41 as soon as SmackDown goes off the air Friday night. So make sure you follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky, not only for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show all weekend long for NXT Stand and Deliver and WWE WrestleMania 41. You'll be able to vote in pre and post show polls around all those three events, and you'll know when the go home show for WrestleMania 41 drops Friday night once SmackDown goes off the air. So make sure you follow us on social media. Chris, we are publishing this bonus WWE show ahead of a bunch of interviews that are actually happening on Friday in the afternoon with Roman Reigns, Paul Levesque, Stone Cold Steve Austin, I believe possibly Rhea Ripley as well on Pat McAfee's show. We just simply could not wait and post this episode so late in the day, so close to NXT Stand and Deliver and WWE WrestleMania 41. So what we're going to do is our best to integrate anything important from those interviews either into the WrestleMania Instant Analysis episodes, if applicable, and we're going to try to make sure it's not applicable because we don't want those to go too long. We'll likely save many of those comments for the Raw After WrestleMania episode on Tuesday. We'll do a second look at WrestleMania on that show, and we'll probably be covering a lot of your questions and comments from WrestleMania while we close our notebook on the granddaddy of them all. That's coming up on Tuesday. So let me just, now that I say that, run down what our podcast schedule looks like before we get into all of this. Already in the feed, waiting for your ear holes. WWE WrestleMania 41 Ultimate Preview, full breakdown, all 14 matches across 2 shows. Your NXT Stand and Deliver Ultimate Preview, full breakdown, all 7 matches for that show, which is Saturday, early afternoon. So make sure you listen to that. Of course, Saturday afternoon, midday, as soon as that goes off the air, NXT Stand and Deliver Instant Analysis. And then immediately after WWE WrestleMania 41 goes off the air, we'll have an instant analysis Saturday night for night 1 and Sunday night for night 2. In terms of the way we're going to handle breaking down SmackDown itself, this go-home show Friday night, some of it will integrate, again, into the instant analysis episodes. Some of it potentially we could save for that Tuesday WWE episode. It just depends what happens, but we'll try to make it as short as we possibly can and yet as comprehensive as we possibly can. So, Chris, WrestleMania week off and running. We are already at, I think, 4 hours of podcasting before we even do this show. And I just got to say, this week feels somewhat similar and yet drastically different at the same time from this week last year.
I keep forgetting it's WrestleMania week, to be honest.
That's because you're not there, and you were there last year. That was
part of that is because I'm not there. And so it's obviously different than a year ago, but even comparing it to 2 years ago, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know if it's just the go home wasn't very go homey. I don't know if the media stuff during the week is not quite hitting the same, but like legit multiple times I've had to remind myself that it was this weekend for whatever reason. It's weird.
Well, I think the CM Punk interview with Ariel Helwani last year carried a lot of water in terms of like building WrestleMania. And he really wasn't even talking about WWE for the vast majority of that. But I listened back to our bonus show in this spot a year ago, and we spent like 35 minutes talking about like an hour and a half interview, right? Because he said so many different things. I think that was part of it. And certainly just the rock of it all. And that continues to get lost by people. Like when you're comparing the WrestleMania 40 build to the WrestleMania 41 build, The Rock was on TV almost every week. And even when he wasn't, he was cutting 20 to 30 minute promos on social media for 2 different matches. He main evented one night of the show, but he was heavily featured in both main events. And he was such a huge part of what WrestleMania was last year. So when you take 40 and you make it 41 and you pull The Rock out from it, and as popular as John Cena is, he ain't The Rock. No one's The Rock. We say this time and again. Triple H even said something this week. He was asked about The Rock being the final boss and, just showing up and things going crazy. And he actually kind of threw a shot at him. And I think it got buried by a lot of other stuff people are talking about. But he's like, yeah, he goes, Rock can come onto TV and cut a promo and no one can really know what he's talking about. And it'll still be the most interesting and most talked about thing on the program. And he's right about that. Yeah. It's just true. So
which is literally what happened earlier this year.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what he was referring to. Like he can come on and just spout a bunch of shit and you'd be like, what the hell was that? And everyone's talking about that instead of a great match or a great storyline or whatever the case might be. So I think when Rock showed up at Elimination Chamber and did the whole deal with Cody Rhodes and obviously John Cena turning heel, we said, oh, wow, Rock's back for WrestleMania season. And he wasn't. And I think there's a void that has been left by that expectation versus reality that they probably didn't intend.
That's exactly what it is. That's I've tried. You and I talked after we recorded the Ultimate Preview. I was like, were we being too negative? I didn't want us to come across as too negative about the show because I am really, really excited about the show. And even if it doesn't live up to WrestleMania 40, that's fine. But I think that's it right there because this whole Cena thing kicked off with The Rock. And the expectations went through the roof, and then The Rock just never showed up, and it hasn't met those expectations.
Yeah, it's just like there's a void of expectation versus reality. And the question is, were we as fans and viewers, was it appropriate for us to have the expectation that he'd be there every week? The answer to me is yes, because he was on multiple episodes of TV leading into Elimination Chamber. So when you're building it toward Chamber, then you're saying, well, clearly if he's going to be there for Chamber, he's going to be there for the road to WrestleMania. And I was okay with the concept of like Rock not being there all the time because Cody versus Cena needs to exist on its own. Those are the two most important people in this match. Rock is tertiary to them, but I didn't expect him not to be there at all. And I think had he been in that one, like in one of those weeks where Cena wasn't there or where Cena was there, but whatever they had scheduled with Cody wasn't that great, if he had made even one appearance, I feel like our take on this feud and the build to WrestleMania would be different.
I agree. I wouldn't have to say every time we talk about Cena, Cody, what about The Rock?
Right. And they've only mentioned him even once, and it was in passing in their dual promo.
Yeah.
When it probably should have been something mentioned a little bit.
So
more.
Look, we might get more on SmackDown tonight too. Like
we
Cena
might.
And Cody are going to thing, and maybe The Rock shows up, and maybe that really jumpstarts it. So just as we're recording this early Friday, this is where it's at.
Yeah, now there's a number of topics that we're going to be discussing on the remainder of this show, but since we're discussing The Rock, let's kind of kick off on this note that I just mentioned, that Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to be on the Pat McAfee show Friday. And we also know he lives in Las Vegas and will be honored at the WWE Hall of Fame for his match with Bret Hart. But Chris, in our Ultimate Preview, we completely forgot to mention Austin. Like, we didn't even bring up his name. And I believe that's a massive oversight given how much time we have spent, including at the start of the show, discussing The Rock being part of the main event. Clearly, the way to integrate Austin into the show, if you so choose, is for him to get Cody's back, fending off Rock. That way, Cody can concentrate on Cena. And if you consider the potential for Austin to get involved in this match, it does lend far more credence to the idea of Cody retaining the title. I'm not going to change my prediction from Cena because that really should be the booking here for all the reasons we stated on the Ultimate Preview. And again, if for some reason you have not heard that episode, you absolutely must listen to it. But I would love to see this basically be the inverse of WrestleMania 40, where Austin comes to save Cody, but he actually fails, unlike how Undertaker succeeded in helping him last year.
If Stone Cold comes out to save Cody this year after not doing it last year, I'm going to be even more annoyed we didn't get him last year because I was there in the stadium where everyone starts chanting Stone Cold because they think he's the next one to come out with the Cody Vengers. Mm-hmm. And then you get the gong, which was a great surprise.
But don't forget, because everyone expected Stone Cold Steve Austin last year, when that gong hit, it hit like twice as hard as it otherwise would have.
It did. Exactly. Totally understand. So, yeah, I don't know. Like Austin, I want to plug a colleague at The Athletic did a story a couple months ago, went out to Austin's ranch. I don't think it's in Vegas. I think it's actually closer to Reno. I think it's really in the middle. He's in Nevada. Really in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. It's really in the middle of nowhere. That's when I talked to the writer about it, about how he's getting into this like sand dune racing and all this kinds of stuff. And it was interesting. And Austin said he really didn't like how his match with Kevin Owens went at WrestleMania 38. In Dallas, which I was stunned by because I think we all thought it was good. But as we saw Kevin Owens say recently, they didn't know what they were doing until like the day of the show because Vince and they just hadn't come up with something. So I think it sounded like Austin wanted to make up for that and do something bigger and better. And obviously he doesn't have a match here, so I don't know what it is. But Yeah, I mean, The Rock, Rock coming out, Stone Cold coming out, stunning The Rock, Cody wins. Like you can see it. I don't know if it's the best story, like you
Mhm.
said. Like I do think Cena winning is the better story. Um, but I could see that happening. He's got to be involved, right? It's in Las Vegas. He doesn't have to leave. Like he's there. He's going to be at the Hall of Fame thing. Like it's so obvious.
Right.
You
He's going to
have
be
him
there. He's going to be all around. Right.
You have to do something with him. He will be involved in something on the show.
It would be interesting if he was involved in the show, but wasn't involved in the main event somehow. Like that would be weird, but
Yeah.
it's also possible. I just did a little Google Maps search while you were talking. So his ranch is in Gardnerville, Nevada, which is a town simply I've never heard of before. It is 1 hour south of Reno, and it is 6.5 hours northwest of Las Vegas. I didn't even realize you could drive 7 hours in Nevada. I didn't realize this state's huge, way bigger than I thought. I don't know why I never considered that, but I guess maybe a lot of it's desert and shit. But man, there's some random ass big spots in Nevada. I guess the entire like northeast corner of Nevada by like I guess where Utah is. Man, it's pretty empty. But anyway, yeah, you can apparently drive 7 hours in Nevada, and he lives as far away as you probably could from Las Vegas, but nevertheless within the same state, not across the country in Philadelphia, which is why he didn't show up last year. Now,
by the way, I think it's actually Nevada, not Nevada. I looked it up.
Nevada versus Nevada.
Yeah, I think it's like yeah,
Reno,
like
Nevada,
Oregon,
Las Vegas,
Oregon.
Nevada, maybe.
Yeah, that's what it's according to Google. That's how it's actually pronounced
Oh, okay.
without the long A.
Reno, Nevada. No, that is a long A.
Any listeners, please correct us. Which one?
Is it really?
The accurate
Is
one
it really Nevada? That's
That's
weird.
what it says according to Google.
Okay,
but
well, fair
you
enough.
never
I
know.
mean, I tried. Is the Google AI or something else? Because the Google AI is notoriously wrong.
It's the Google AI, but it's linking to a New York Times.
Okay, fair. All right, interesting. Fair enough. All right, so look, another idea I had for WrestleMania, something that just came to me after our show was over, as we were kind of getting prepared for this, was our whole preview for Randy Orton was who's the singular opponent he's going to fight. And I was thinking, that's kind of boring, right? What if they put him through a gauntlet of some kind? Like Nick Aldis, if he's really pissed at him, shouldn't he give him like a continuous string of opponents? Maybe like 3, like the first one, Solo Sikoa. They have a decent 8-minute match. Orton wins. Second one comes out. It's whoever it is. Maybe Tama Tonga. Third one is like a surprise return or debut. Or instead of it being a singular opponent, you give him a 4-way match, or you give him like a handicap match against Mello Don't Miz or something like that. I'm just thinking of like other, we're very looking at this in a silo of it's Orton and then a singular mystery opponent, if that is even the case. And by the way, Friday night, once SmackDown is over, they may just announce Solo Sikoa. Silver King gets pissed off, and then that's what it is. But I feel like if they did something different and unique here, then it could really hit for the Orton segment.
Maybe, but that feels like Vince booking. And as I kept thinking about WrestleMania 40 last year, the one that was like fully Triple H's, the thing about last year's WrestleMania is it was pure wrestling show. You know, it didn't have really gimmick matches or gimmick segments that we'd often get with Vince, where Braun Strowman's getting a 10-year-old in the crowd to win the tag team championships, or a Ronda Rousey type of thing. Like, we didn't have any of that last year. It really was just do the wrestling show. And not to say like what you're saying isn't wrestling show, but that feels like something Vince would do. Like if it's like a 10-20 minute thing where he's beating up a bunch of jobbers or low level guys, like I don't want that really.
I'm not
Like,
talking about
I'd rather
I'm not talking about jobbers though. I'm talking about like real wrestlers, and like the last
like
one's a
low
surprise
level.
though.
Like low level, low card, mid card guys. It's Randy Orton. I'd kind of that's something you do on like a SmackDown. I wouldn't do.
But that's
that
why
on
I'm saying
WrestleMania.
just having Solo Sikoa come out there for a 2-week build on a match that is clearly thrown together, that doesn't work for me, brother. Like it's got to be something better than that.
No, I mean if it's a mystery opponent, no. If they announce it tonight on SmackDown,
Like if we end SmackDown and it's like it's going to be Orton Sikoa, I'm going to be immensely disappointed. That is as
I will
lacking
be
creative
disappointed,
as
yes.
possible. Yeah.
yes.
Okay. I also know on the Ultimate Preview, I was heavily against the idea of Jimmy helping Jey Uso against Gunther, assuming either Gunther was cheating or Ludwig Kaiser ran down to help him or something like that. Right before we started the show, like maybe 5 minutes, I had a second thought about the way this could actually work. But Chris, it would require help from commentary, okay? Because if you remember their feud last year, the key to it was not just that Jay and Jimmy were split over Roman Reigns and the Bloodline and all that, but it was how many times Jimmy actively cost Jay championships. So if you turn that around and you have Jimmy get his brothers back in a crucial moment to help him win, not to cheat, but to circumvent Kaiser, or if Gunther himself is cheating and Jimmy stops it with a chair or whatever the case might be, that would really bring their brother's storyline full circle. It would also allow them to 100% get back together as a tag team eventually coming out of this. Because as great as Jay's singles run is, and as hot as he is right now, and I don't see that changing for, probably another year or so, but eventually you got to get them back together. They got to do the tag team run. And you want to talk about revitalizing the tag team division, getting the Usos back together, that would massively help, probably more than anything else WWE could do. Them and the Lucha Brothers, I would say.
I mean, I already said, yes, Jimmy should be there to help Jay. But that's an additional way to sell it, for sure.
I'm saying that context helps me as someone who doesn't want that, is what I'm trying to say.
Why do you not want it?
Because if you're going to put over Jay as championship material, then he needs to go and beat Gunther. Just straight up.
Right. I want Jimmy to even the odds. I don't want Jimmy to be the reason it puts him over.
Right, but I would agree. What I was saying is initially, I would just prefer there not being a scenario where he needs to even the odds. Just Jay and Gunther fight. Because that is the story that they have largely been telling. Sure. It's that Jay's not good enough. And that's why I wanted them to spend so much time on him actively improving and getting better, which is something they just completely glossed over. They focused on this and that and him doubting himself and all this, but they didn't focus on the fact that he fought him 3 times, was not good enough, and needed to get better. And he got his mind right. That's the story they told. He got his mind right, but he didn't get his skill right. And given how great Gunther is and the way he purports himself as the ring general, it would have been great to see Jay also get his, skill right in addition to his mind.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's all I was saying. Now, look, we got a lot more to talk about. We have DMs that we're going to cover from a lot of our listeners here, questions we're going to answer. We have quotes and hot takes from some of these interviews that have been done with quote unquote major media. But Chris, before we get deeper into the show, there was a Twitter reply this week where you alluded to our listeners, for those who saw it, that the WWE WrestleMania 41 Ultimate Preview episode we published was not necessarily complete. Do you want to explain what you meant by there being a director's cut that exists?
So I think the show that went up was about 3 hours, or like 2 hours, 57 minutes.
Just shy of 3 hours, yeah.
The show we recorded was 3.5 hours. And I think that's the longest. I don't know if some of those those year in review shows might have gone that long or not.
It was easily the longest show we ever recorded.
Okay, yeah. And frankly, I think we did get a bit repetitive and maybe a bit too negative at times. There was stuff that was needed to be cut out.
There was, yes.
So that was a reference to.
I forget which fantasy booking idea of yours I cut. There's one of them I had to cut. It took us, it diverted us.
I think it was Cody turning heel.
Right.
In the main event. I suggested that The Rock comes out. Cody ends up joining with The Rock again and turning on Cena and to retain. and then Cena becomes the face chaser against the heel Cody. And yes, we got off.
I think my live response to that was like, Chris, we're 3 hours into the show. What are you doing? So I there was some stuff I trimmed from Chris. There was some stuff I trimmed from myself. Absolutely. Whether it was takes or repeating things that Chris said, just to kind of give my own, circular logic to it, whatever the case might be. But let me just be clear for all of you. It is extremely rare we actually tape something and do not include it in the episode. It's maybe happened 5 times in as many years. But yeah, the show was way, way, way too long. Edits had to be made. Here's just a snippet of some banter that we cut from Tuesday's show. We actually had a conversation about Las Vegas, so we felt it was appropriate to throw it in here. But Chris, between Saturday and Monday, the show in the T-Mobile Arena, NXT Stand and Deliver, Monday they're coming back with Raw. There might be a little hiccup in all of this, no?
Yeah, actually, we just found out Tuesday, at least at the Athletic. It may not have been announced yet, but the NHL playoffs are starting this weekend, and the Vegas Golden Knights, it sounds like, are going to have a game on Sunday, which was not originally in the plan a year ago. So they're probably going to have to tear everything down, let them play a hockey game on Sunday, then put it all back up. It's obviously doable. I mean, WWE is they've all done this before, but typically WWE has the arena for a full weekend, and that may not be the case this year.
Well, that's the entire point of them kind of sticking with one venue. It's they can set it up and leave it and just make minor adjustments to the ring and whatever else they need to do, and they can just go hands off. But that's going to be an incredible amount of work for WWE's production team and ring team if they truly have to tear all of that down and put it back up. With Stand and Deliver ending, midday Saturday, that makes it a little bit easier. It gives them more lead time. But I mean, a lot of those people you have to assume are also going to be working WrestleMania. So, man, that's going to be absolutely chaotic from a logistics standpoint if they have to do all that. Hopefully the Vegas Knights game's at night because that would make life a lot easier, I would guess. But
yeah, not that long ago, there was not a football stadium or a normal basketball hockey arena in Vegas.
Yeah.
They just had the casinos and the casino arenas, essentially. So Vegas has quickly become a big-time destination. By the way, did you watch the WrestleMania 9 documentary on Peacock?
Not yet. I haven't had time. I was in Augusta, Georgia for a week.
It's actually pretty good. I mean, like, WrestleMania 9 was terrible, and it was ranked dead last on my WrestleMania rankings. That documentary does a good job of making you think it was a good show.
Nice.
So.
I'm looking forward to watching it probably in 2 weeks when life actually provides me with the opportunity.
Yeah.
Not sure if this is a hot take or a mild take. I kind of dislike that all of this stuff is happening in Las Vegas. I'm not talking about WWE. I'm like talking about NFL team, NHL team, the stadiums, the arenas, every event going there now. It's not really attractive for me. I like when events are in Philadelphia and New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco. Vegas is like soulless.
So, I mean, it is, but it kind of makes sense as the big event.
Well, it makes sense, of course. Yeah.
The city is there for that. I don't live there. I know some people who live there. It's a very rapidly growing place. Got Final Fours and stuff coming there soon. They're probably going to get an NBA team there pretty soon. It's just part of the rotation now. They got the baseball team coming in, the A's.
I feel like it's taking all the steam away from Phoenix. Like everything that used to happen in Phoenix is now going to happen in Vegas.
I'm okay with that because I like Phoenix. It's fine. It's a nice city, but like Vegas is more fun. I mean, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess.
Are you a Vegas guy? Like, do you ever go?
I haven't, but I've also have like no attraction there at all. It just doesn't seem like something I want to be involved in. I'd much rather go to a major city like a New York or a Philadelphia. I was going to say Washington, D.C., not these days. Yeah.
I've gone there for a bachelor party. I've stayed extra when I go there for college football things and stay late and go to the casinos and do some stuff. I like it. I like the energy of everything kind of going on there. I'm a big fan.
I just know myself. I know
not in the summer though. In the spring it's fine. The weather's great.
I just know that I would have 10 times more fun and have had probably 10 times more fun in New Orleans than I would in Las Vegas. Like I just by means of direct comparison.
Sure, but obviously Vegas is huge. Where everything is, it's all touristy. You know, it's very much kind of its own thing in a vacuum. But I have a lot of fun there. If you're not a Vegas guy, you may not. But I've gone there to see. One time I went there and I went and saw David Copperfield, and it was one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. Like it's there's a lot to do there.
That's the crazy thing really about me. I love all the elements of Vegas. I just don't think I want them all in one place. I love gambling. I love playing craps as an example. Drinking, I have no issue with. Going to shows and seeing sports and having great food, going to restaurants. These are all things that appeal to me. I don't think I want to go to Las Vegas to do them. That's just as simple as that.
Last time I was in Vegas was last summer for Big 12 Media Days, and I saw Bill Raftery walking through the casino floor because Team USA basketball was practicing before the Olympics at that time. So we saw a couple of the NBA guys walk by. Actually, one time too, when I went to that bachelor party with my buddy, we went to the club that's in MGM. I forgot what it's called, but Kim Kardashian showed up. And so this was like 10 plus years ago. I've got a blurry photo on my phone of Kim Kardashian across the the club, and I'm like, yeah, I'm at the club with Kim Kardashian. I could say I did that. So now I'm saying it on a podcast.
By telling the Kim K story, you really ruined the joke. I was going to ask when you saw Bill Rafferty if you were going to give him a little kiss, and you kind of just ruined that by telling the Kim K story instead. I could ask if you gave her one of those, but you'd probably get hauled away and off to another country these days. So now you clearly understand there were some things we needed to trim from that show. Let's go along and cover the rest of this show. Let's hit some DMs from our Getting Overheads on social media. Again, you can send us questions and comments for the show on Twitter at Getting Overcast, on Blue Sky at Getting Over. You can email us as well, gettingoverpod@gmail.com, for whatever you send us around NXT Stand and Deliver, WWE WrestleMania 41. We will do our best to integrate some of them into the instant analysis. It is more likely that we save them for the second look shows on Tuesday and Wednesday next week, but I just wanted to make everyone clear what the intention is when you send in those questions and comments. So Wayne Ellis at Rankles75, any reasons for optimism for us long-suffering Wyatt Six fans, or has WWE screwed the pooch again? So reports are that Bo Dallas got injured, and because he's the entire centerpiece for this faction, WWE tabled plans it had for WrestleMania. And he's been cleared for a couple weeks, but, you know, in you're on the road to WrestleMania, you have to figure out what's going to be on the show, what's not. And apparently, those plans included Alexa Bliss, either joining or being involved with the faction in some form or fashion. And I don't really feel like that's a spoiler, because I think we all assumed that was going to happen. And they also teased it on television. Now, all we've been able to confirm here is that Dallas was injured, and he is now cleared. What I've been wondering about this entire time is why an entire faction had to be put on hold just because Bo was hurt. The angle, whenever they give it to us, it better be centrally focused on him wrestling, because otherwise you would think that he could just continue cutting promos and leading the storyline while others wrestled for him. Plus, it's not like you need Bo in the ring to get Alexa in the ring, unless you were going to do some kind of mixed tag team situation, which I suppose is at least plausible. So the optimism for you, Wayne, is that with WrestleMania now clearing over the next couple of days, I would expect them all to be back on television sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, once we got a month out from Mania, you know, you're generally not getting anything new at that point. So, well, we always get a bunch of new things, their returns and shifts post-Mania, and I imagine that'll be the case again.
It's like we talked about on the Ultimate Preview. Sheamus isn't on the show. Sami Zayn isn't on the show. So if they're not booked for WrestleMania, why are they going to be on TV? You need to use the time you have on TV for the actual matches that are going to be on the card. And I'm sure Sheamus will be back. If not the week after WrestleMania, then shortly after that. At Flair for the Gold, okay, I gotta ask, and feel like both Adam and Chris would be good to analyze this. Everyone keeps talking about too many multi-person matches for Mania, but as of now, there are only 3 out of 11. Does it just feel like there's a lot? Now, this question was obviously sent in before the card was finalized. And now, yes, to his point, out of 14 matches, assuming Randy Orton gets a one-on-one, there are indeed only 3 multi-person matches: Intercontinental, the Night 1 main event, and the Women's World Championship. That is certainly not too many. And it's only 1 more than last year. There were 2 last year, there's 3 this year. But the reason this was talked about so much in the lead up to WrestleMania is that we all assumed the WWE Tag Team titles and the United States Championship would also be multi-person matches. And if they were, if 5 of 14 matches on the card were multi-person, that would be too many. That said, if we extend this out to NXT Stand and Deliver, because it is a major WWE show happening on the same weekend, 4 of 7 matches on that card involve multiple people. That is absolutely too many. So when you combine those, you're at 7 of 21. 33% of WrestleMania weekend premium live event matches are multi-person. That is too much. But for the main roster alone, yeah, it's fine as of right now. And I still believe it would have been okay to add that tag team cluster. Yeah, it's a huge mistake it's not on the card.
Yeah, because that was the story they were telling for like 2 months, was all these teams together. And so it is weird to not get that and only get a one-on-one team match on SmackDown. So that was disappointing.
Exactly. Jesse Mokoena at Jess Mokoena wrote in, I find it very interesting that even in the United States, Bianca Belair is getting mixed reactions. Is she in her Super Cena phase, or is it just because she's in a program with people who are more over? It's interesting because she was in her Super Cena phase a couple of years ago. But since spending the last year in the tag team division, even though her team's dominated, she certainly wasn't booked as strongly as she had been previously. And that was hugely positive for her. I believe what you said, though, Jesse. The fan reaction is so strong for Rhea Ripley. She's the most over woman in the entire company. WWE has been doing a great job in the lead up to WrestleMania, getting Io Sky cheered, getting her over. So Bianca, consequently, has become the least popular of the three in the match by virtue of creative. Now, I truly hope WWE uses that to either give her a significant character edge or turn her heel. This is the first time in her main roster career where Bianca could actually turn heel and it wouldn't work against fan sentiment. And Belair is so crazy likable that switching her back babyface would be crazy easy to do. Like, it would take 1 week and she'd be a face again. So I hope they roll with it at Mania. We saw what she could do as a heel in NXT. I would love to get a taste of that on the main roster.
No, it's exactly what you said. She's just in a feud with Io as being booked as the biggest babyface of the three, and Rhea is the most popular woman in the company. I didn't realize this until Cody made a comment on First Take, but there was a point where Rhea was outselling him in merchandise for the company. She was the top merch seller. So that is just how unbelievably popular Rhea is, even though she's the heelest of the three in this storyline. But people love Rhea. So I think it's smart for Bianca to kind of almost lean into that, as she's done a bit by wearing black and doing some other stuff.
There have only been a couple people who in an individual week have outsold Cody in merchandise. It is Rhea Ripley and CM Punk. That's the list. Not even Roman Reigns. And that's largely because Roman hasn't been around and, he did his merch selling for, a 3-year span. But that's it. That's the entire list. And it's been like 1 week and then it goes right back to Cody. And even Jey Uso, as over as he is, not outselling Cody Rhodes at this point. Jason Cannon at Black Clark Kent 7. So we are totally on the same page that Naomi is doing her best work right now. But I'm not going to lie, one nagging thought I have on these promos that the writers are crushing it with, by the way, is how it did not occur to them to come up with something like this for Natalya. She has never had anything this good to sink her teeth into. I do love this for Naomi, though. So look, creative has been shit for Natalya basically her entire career. It's a legitimate question. And the promos that she's cut and the character that she's been showing for this Bloodsport match that I actually think she wrestled on Thursday night, it's basically better than anything she's done in her entire WWE career. One could argue that Natalya has never actually been over. So doing this, what they're doing with Naomi for her, might have been wasted on her either way. But again, she's never really had the chance. At this point in their careers, there's far more runway with Naomi than there is with Natalya. So I appreciate that they're giving her all of this booking, and it makes sense that they're doing it, especially given the storyline and all that. But would I love Natalya to get an opportunity to do something on the main roster? I actually think so. And what you do is you use her for all of this up-and-coming talent. You use her in this Bloodsport character that she's put together for Lyra Valkyria as a big challenger for the Intercontinental title, as a challenger for Roxanne Perez when she comes up, and this woman and that woman. Use her as a gatekeeper. Make her into, a Dolph Ziggler, but give her an edge. There is stuff you can do with Natalya, and WWE just has never successfully done it.
I feel like Natalya's been positioned as the old veteran for like 10 years or more, because she was there before the Divas revolution happened, and then there's Total Divas and she's the old veteran on that. And so she's just always been positioned like that because there's always been just people younger than her, even when she wasn't that old, not that long ago. So I think that's to your point about the creative for Natalya has really never been good. She's really talented. There was a period where people were crapping on Natalya for whatever reason, which was very unfair. She's very good at what she does. But she's just always been in the same position, heel or face. Maybe she gets one last big push at some point whenever her career comes to an end. But she's always been around. They've just never done much with her.
Yeah, for sure. Blake Murphy at Chloe Elkhound. I'm interested on how when Travis Scott will be used, if at all. He's got an 11:40 p.m. Pacific performance Saturday at Coachella. I'd have to presume he's using the chopper to get between venues. Yeah, this isn't really a huge issue to me. Private jet to Las Vegas at 3 a.m. You go to sleep. You get to the WrestleMania venue, Allegiant Stadium, 4 p.m. or so. I definitely believe he has to be involved in the main event somehow. And Chris, my fantasy booking, I think I said this like a month ago, 2 months ago, is Travis Scott gets involved in the match. Bad Bunny runs down, takes him out.
That would be great. That'd be
a moment.
That would be as big of a social moment that WWE has ever done.
Absolutely.
If that happens.
Yeah, Bad Bunny, like doing a Thez press to Travis Scott at WrestleMania in the main event with John Cena and Cody Rhodes. You want to talk about making a freaking moment? That's how you make a moment. That's how you get viral. Viral traffic and interest. Justin Downs at Banana Pancakes with 2 N's in the first part and no E at the end said Rollins should win the match at WrestleMania. It's the best storytelling. Seth at his core hates and despises both guys. Punk and Roman are more focused on Heyman. Seth has stayed clear-headed the entire time, played both of them, pulling their strings. As Seth said, the winner will shape the industry. That needs to be someone who will be there day in and day out. Then you look after WrestleMania. This could be the building block for a year-long build on the feud to the main event that we have been wanting, Roman and Seth one-on-one. When they did the Shield callback chair shot, they had the blonde highlights in his hair. It's all there. The story sells itself. Lastly, Seth deserves the win. He has carried this story, as Silver King said, on his back, and not to mention the blood, sweat, and tears he put into making last year's WrestleMania even bigger while having a destroyed knee. The reason I read this, it was a little bit repetitive, of course, of things that we said on the Ultimate Preview and have said the last couple of weeks. But that point at the end there about a main event win over his 2 greatest rivals being a level of payback for Rollins being an absolute freaking Iron Man last year, working 2 matches while clearly very injured, back and knee, and then getting involved in the main event storyline to the point that he hobbled to the ring at WrestleMania. And I wanted to mention, WWE actually posted a 45-minute director's cut, speaking of director's cuts, of the WrestleMania 40 main event. It's on their YouTube channel. I got a chance to watch it last night. Great viewing experience. I highly suggest watching that before WrestleMania 41. But it is easy to forget how crucial of a role Rollins had in the entire WrestleMania 40 build. I do believe Rollins is the right winner of this match no matter what. We talked about this on the Ultimate Preview. Whether he turns heel with or without Heyman, no matter how the match is booked, if he stays babyface, Rollins winning is by far the best booking. Punk winning second best, Reigns winning would be the most ridiculous. But when you put the context that he, I don't want to say carried it last year, but was so integral in the storyline last year and was such a crucial part of WrestleMania 40 going off without a hitch, it does stand to reason that WrestleMania 41 would be his pat on the back and thank you for doing this. Let's put you over and let's give you a big push in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, all I have to say is what I said in the Ultimate Preview, which was he deserves to win this. He should win this. But him standing tall on Raw has me very concerned that he won't. And nothing has obviously changed since then.
Chris Wise at The One Wise Watch wrote in. He said, it's been frustrating not seeing John Cena that much and part-timers in general when talking about Roman Reigns and CM Punk to a lesser degree. Are we ever going to reach a future where the main event scene at Mania is going to be far more full-timers? You look back, the last time we really had a full-time main event of WrestleMania was 2021. It's frustrating because it's a tough story to tell when a superstar isn't there to tell it. So this is a great question. However, I disagree with the contention about Roman Reigns the last 2 years. He was absolutely a full-timer before WrestleMania 39. And even before 40, he was on TV far, far more than he was over the last year going into 41. This year, we're dealing with 2 simultaneous main events featuring clear part-timers. Hell, Cena isn't even a part-timer. He's a barely there at this point. He will be a part-timer the rest of the year, but his dates are clearly backloaded because he's hardly showed up to this point. Reigns has been a part-timer all year. So WWE has 2 main events where 2 of the 5 key competitors were barely involved in the build, at least not as much as you would want. At this point, you have to believe Reigns remains a main eventer either until he retires or he gets a new contract where he appears even less than he already does. So we probably have at least 2 more years where he's factored into the scene. That's not counting The Rock possibly wrestling him or possibly wrestling Rhodes next year. So I would say we're probably 2 more years away from being able to go into a WrestleMania and saying to ourselves that everyone in the main event is a full-time superstar.
Yeah, agree on Roman, because Roman's, it's hard to imagine him being in Mania that's not a main event, like just with what he's done. Punk, this is Cena's last WrestleMania, so he won't be part of that group. Punk's can't be that much.
But I don't consider him a part-timer. I mean, he's on TV regularly.
Yeah.
He's on TV less. He's on TV
look,
less than some other people, but pretty much every week. I mean,
no. I'm talking about guys who are currently on the roster who could become part-timers.
Oh, heard.
Punk will probably transition to be a part-timer in a year or
couple
two.
years for sure.
I mean, Cody won't be a part-timer, but he's up there in age. So yeah, you're probably right. It probably is a couple more years. Trying to think anybody who could come back. Brock Lesnar, maybe, if he comes back at some point. I don't know if they put him in a main event, but that's pretty much it.
I don't
Brock's see I don't see Edge. Daniel Bryan's pretty much part-time at this point. You know, there's not a lot of options out there.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to see Brock Lesnar back in WWE. That's just the way I feel right now.
Probably not. I'm just thinking of possibilities of guys who could come back to be WrestleMania main eventers who are not around right now.
Chris, just to bump into this whole, Q&A that we're doing, answering all the DMs, while we've been taping the show, WWE revealed the WrestleMania 41 set live on the Pat McAfee show. And I mean, we don't need to go into a descriptor of them because all of you can watch it on social media. We'll go ahead and publish a video on both channels. That way you guys can view them if you don't see it directly from WWE. But I got to tell you, first of all, the set looks beautiful. I love the ramp. It's LED, so they're going to do graphics on the ramp. That's cool. The stage is awesome. Looks like a Las Vegas hotel, and they'll be able to do a lot of stuff with graphics on it. It's all screens. But dude, at the very end of this reveal, a woman comes out wearing like a white shirt and like black maybe skirt and a black hat with her head down. And I'm like, oh, like, what is this? Like, like, is it Chelsea Green coming out there? Like, I just couldn't exactly tell. Lifts her head up. And it's Steph, not Stephanie. It is Steph McMahon saying like, welcome to WrestleMania or whatever. And, you guys don't get to hear it on the show because Chris and I paused so that way we could watch the video itself. I let out one of the heartiest laughs that I have had in a long ass time. So I hope anyone who watches this, you laugh as hard at Steph McMahon showing up at the end as I did.
Yeah. First off, I think obligatory hey now, by the way.
You know what? That is completely fair.
Gonna look good, but she's got me saying, hey now.
And second, as you alluded to, she's kind of rebranded herself. She's not Stephanie McMahon anymore.
No.
She is Steph McMahon. We had Steph's Places, that ESPN Plus show, and also ESPN announced this week she's got a podcast, and they
WWE
only referred to
announced
her
this
as Steph McMahon.
Yes. So she has a podcast now, and she says on the opening episode of the podcast, we're not going to have any douchebags as guests on the show. Guest one is Dana White. So I guess rules are made to be broken. Right, Chris?
Didn't take long.
Unfreaking believable. So look, here's a good last DM to kind of get us into the next portion of the show. Joe Schmo at JDC_1996 wrote in, WrestleMania 41 and WWE in 2025 generally, sort of reminding me of where the WWF was in 2002 and WrestleMania 18. The highest of highs, WrestleMania 17 was achieved, so he's equating that to WrestleMania 40. And while all of the stars are still around, something just feels different. Roman isn't on top anymore. The Bloodline is basically a Jacob Fatu project. Other side Judgment Day is no more. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn hate each other again. While Cody Rhodes is still the quarterback, he's not chasing anything. Similar to 2002, WWE has also seen an influx of new talent that weren't around during its rise. Punk and Cena being in the fold sort of reminds of how Hogan became a big player around that time. Having a guy like Penta reminds of like Booker T and RVD. Your thoughts? Love the pod. So I think there's something to what you're saying. And we did discuss this to a degree, both on the Ultimate Preview and even, a moment ago. I'm not sure I completely agree, though. There are a bunch of long-term stories being told, just not as long-term as what we got last year. Let me put it like this. WrestleMania 40 felt like the series finale to Breaking Bad. WrestleMania 41 feels like a season 1 finale to Better Call Saul, a spinoff. Still quality, still entertaining, but it has not generated the same level of long-term investment and excitement going into the episode. However, a year or two from now, we may feel exactly like we did 1 year ago at this time. There's also something to be said for 40 being immensely predictable. You knew the matches before they were made. You knew the outcomes of the matches before they happened. Remember how every babyface walked out as champion? We had that long conversation on the Raw after WrestleMania episode. 41 is way more unpredictable. And there's something intriguing about that, but it is undoubtedly different from a year ago.
I think that's a great comparison that listener made, because it goes back to where on paper, this looks like a fantastic card, but in practice, it doesn't quite feel like that. And I think that's what happens when you look at WrestleMania 18. You know, The Undertaker versus Ric Flair, and it's a match that nobody ever talks about other than Arn Anderson coming in with an amazing spine buster.
I don't think I've ever watched that match more than once, like when I saw it live.
Yeah. So like it you had, you know, the Cody Rock type character versus the veteran old guy coming back type of thing. So I see a lot of comparisons because I got out of wrestling in between 2001 and 2002. That was when the invasion happened. I got through about Survivor Series, but I had moved into middle school at that point and made a new set of friends, and then I got out of wrestling. But and it's a lot. You look at the numbers, it's when a lot of people got out.
That was middle school for you?
Yeah, I graduated elementary school in 2000.
Holy shit, you're younger than I thought. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's a good comparison. Not to say they can't turn it back up in the right direction, obviously, but it does feel like we're in kind of an in-between era where like multiple eras are kind of colliding at this WrestleMania.
Yeah, it does feel like the eras are kind of bumping up against each other to a degree. And that's the same time I stopped watching. So 2002 to 2005, the only wrestling I saw those 3 years was WrestleMania. It's the only show I watched. I didn't pick it up again until 2006. That's because I was in college and I was doing a lot of fun things that were not professional wrestling at that time. But look, there's a bunch more topics for us to cover in depth. We previewed them off the top. As a quick aside before we get to them, Big E announced during a sparsely viewed live stream that a certain former WWE superstar has re-signed with the company. I'm not going to say that person's name because this was stated on a minor show. And I actually have no idea in hell why Big E said this or WWE allowed it to be spoiled on like this program. But because that audience was so small, I'm not going to say the name here. You can Google it. Big E superstar re-signed probably. And you'll be able to see exactly who he's talking about if you so choose. Now, let's get into some of these bigger topics, Chris. WrestleMania week has fully put into focus that the WWE of 2025 is drastically different as an entity than it ever has been before. We all knew when Endeavor bought WWE and created TKO, based on what it did with UFC, it was going to focus heavily on monetizing WWE in ways that Vince McMahon's ownership simply did not. Some of the ways in which that has happened, they would be expected. Ring advertisements, banner placements on the barricade, heavily promoting Netflix given the media rights deal, a heavier international focus, doing more shows overseas, and a reorganization of events. All of that was fair to assume. And we discussed most of it at different points on the podcast as this relationship began to unfold. Some of them you could even say have been positive, at least if you care that WWE business is doing well and therefore wrestlers are making more money. But man, oh man, has this gotten to an extreme level that I'm not sure anyone could have foreseen. The way ticket prices have exploded so that normal fans are almost entirely being priced out of many major shows. Absolutely everything being monetized. The deal with Fanatics specifically has gotten out of control when it comes to the cost of merchandise. Everything they're doing with tops. Hell, they're putting patches on ring gear to sell more trading cards. The explosion and exploiting of the fan experience. Hundreds of dollars to take a picture with a mid-carder at WWE World, as opposed to reasonable prices.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I remember going to the Access in WrestleMania 34. My brother and I got a picture with Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin. Didn't cost anything.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Back in the day, you buy a ticket to Access and you either get a free picture or you could upgrade for like $100 or even $200 to like meet Roman Reigns and do a whole experience, right? Now it's hundreds of dollars to meet anybody. Every day I'm getting a new email about another corporate partnership. Does WWE really need an official law firm? I mean, it's one thing if you want to have an official sports drink or something related. Go ahead.
Those are the things I don't care about. Those are the things we'll never see.
I know.
You want to sign an official blank of WWE? No problem. That's the thing that doesn't impact the fans. I don't care about that. That's go ahead and do what you want.
No, of course.
Your stuff you're saying about ticket prices and fan access. That's my biggest
Yeah,
problem.
this is just an aside to a long list of things that I'm running down, though. But fair to your point. If they want to have official sponsors, if it doesn't impact the TV, who really cares?
Folks, if anybody out there wants to be the official law firm of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, we are available.
We have law firm, sports drink, official cheese. I mean, official beer, partnership, alcohol, whatever you guys want. Just we're open for business. Let's make that very clear. But even beyond all this stuff, the massive events being held WrestleMania week. It's frankly insanity. The roast, those after dark shows, they seem to be starting before WrestleMania is even going to end. The strange scheduling of the Hall of Fame. It feels like they are trying to squeeze water out of a stone at this point. I mean, it is straight up extreme. I just attended the Super Bowl in New Orleans. It didn't feel half as packed event-wise as this. And that's the frickin' Super Bowl. But what's most notable, Chris, is that this is impacting the on-air product and potentially even creative. There's been a much heavier reliance on video packages and promotional elements to fill shows. Key figures for WrestleMania have barely appeared on television. Even the Netflix deal specifically, we anticipated 2.5 to 3 hours of weekly TV with a little bit more edge, slightly less censorship, fewer commercials. We're regularly getting less than 2.5 hours, and after what appeared to be fewer commercials for a couple months, now seems to be pretty much the same, given the shows are shorter. The only thing that has changed is the reduced censorship, but even that's only marginal, 15, maybe 20%. There are surely other examples that I'm leaving out here on the cutting room floor, but the immense monetization of WWE at this point, it feels like oversaturation, and wrestling audiences are more fickle than they are in other sports. History has told us that time and again. Coupled with other stuff that's happening, it's starting to feel even more, Chris, like WWE, it reached its peak at WrestleMania 40. We already knew that was the case, but it may now be burning so bright and trying to fly so high and so fast in terms of monetization. They might be in for a rude awakening on the other side, especially when you consider like the nationwide economic struggles and all that other stuff that needs to get taken into account.
Yeah, and we've talked about this on the 2-night SummerSlams that they're planning. Like, are you sure that's gonna work?
Yeah,
we're not there yet. So
4 months from now, by the way, 4-month turnaround.
I agree on the oversaturation. A lot of this stuff is basic business. You know, when you talk, you have like college football talking about private equity coming in and finding ways to just simply ways to make more money. You want to have an official law firm. You want to have an official sports drink, yada, yada. Who cares? No, that doesn't really matter to anything. You want to do some more events if you think people can show up? That's fine. I do think the fact that this is in Vegas probably played a role. If they're in Philly again, they're probably not doing a roast and some of that kind of stuff. Because you're not going to have as many celebrities probably coming in. But the things that have bothered me are advertisements on the mat. I hate it. I've hated it since it happened. The advertisements on the ring and the barricade during matches, some of them I'm fine with, but I think all in all, it's too much. Like, you don't have to have every LED board around the ring promoting some insurance company or something like that. And then we talked about this in the preview, but I just feel like Triple H might be spread too thin where it's impacting creative, where it's like, a lot of these stories aren't going anywhere. Why aren't people always on TV? Those are the things that bother me. The ticket prices, the fan access, what it means for what I'm watching on television. You want to put something on to sell a trading card? I don't care. That's fine. A lot of people are into cards. It's a huge thing right now. Not my thing, but that's fine. It's really just anything that changes what pro wrestling has been and what we know it as are the things that bother me a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care that much about like ring mat sponsorships. It's ugly, right? And it's off-putting. There's no question about that. But
I hate it.
At the same time, that is an area where if you're a big company, I understand you doing it. Like just, European football clubs for years have had sponsorships on their jerseys. I hate that American sports is now doing that, but I understand. It's valuable billboard placement and you can sell it and make money, that's fine. So when it comes to the ring mat, that I'm okay with and I get it. But when you're charging, for a lower level ticket at WrestleMania, 4 times what you were 2 years ago, and that's just a fake figure, I'm just making a supposition here, that's problematic because guess what? Salaries in the United States and take-home pay and economic conditions, that doesn't come together. That doesn't link up, right? If there's major inflation and those prices go up and it goes along with inflation, then that's what happens, right? If there's a situation where all of a sudden this country's in a huge economic boom and ticketed events are this huge, priority for people and you want to raise your prices, 25%, then okay, that's just kind of the way business goes. But when you are pricing out your most ardent fans and they can't even get upper deck tickets in many cases because they're so expensive, that's going to be a problem. And that is going to come to bite you in the ass when a Raw in Topeka, Kansas, you're trying to get $250 for a lower level ticket. And you look around and these people are like, well, I paid $85 last time WWE was here. I'm not going to pay $250 for it.
And don't forget, Mark Shapiro with TKO had said within the last year they wanted to cut back on the house show circuit in certain towns and stuff like that, which they have. So
and they want to do dynamic. I mean, not want to do. They probably are in many cases doing dynamic pricing and all this shit. And the ticket master of it all is a whole other problem. I mean, everyone hates that.
Yeah, I would. It's funny. Literally, as we're talking about this, and we can move on, but sure. I got an email during this conversation. Comcast Xfinity to brand WrestleMania 41 set in Las Vegas. Comcast home internet brand Xfinity is the official home Wi-Fi partner of WWE. So we may have a sponsorship on that set that we just talked about earlier in the show.
If they put a Xfinity sponsorship on the WrestleMania set, I mean, I guess that can't be so surprising, right?
It says it'll have exclusive branding on the WrestleMania set, the first time integration on the towering set. With LED signage visible throughout.
So that's one where it's like, okay, it's distasteful. I don't want to see it, but I get it. And it doesn't affect the ability of fans to come to shows. That's why I don't care about ring mat advertisements, but it's why I do care about ticket prices and some of this other stuff where I don't want to say it's extortion, but it feels like some fans are getting exploited right now by TKO.
By the way, that WrestleMania 9 documentary on Peacock, which is pretty good, they make a point where they said they were doing the ticket prices for the whole thing at Caesar's Palace and said we always wanted to have a $25 ticket price range for certain people, which is commendable in terms of how they do it. And I feel like Nick Khan may have said something similar like a year or two ago. I don't know if that's still the case, but it's also the world where now like people are going to buy up those cheapest tickets to throw
and
them
resell
on the resale
them.
market,
I know,
which is why dynamic pricing exists, because companies essentially want a cut of that. So it's all a tough situation when you're as popular as you've ever been. It ends up squeezing fans out, and it's unfortunate. I hate it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's going to come around, and they're not going to like it when it does. There's going to be a financial struggle at some point for WWE and TKO when this bubble bursts, and that's when people lose their jobs. And it's not going to work that way. It's one thing about it's one thing to ramp up costs for your fans. It's another to drastically change them. You saw UFC did it when all of a sudden they went to ESPN. And you had to subscribe to ESPN Plus just to get a pay-per-view. So now you're paying a monthly cost. And then they jacked up prices, I think, from like $50 to $75. And it's just like, whoa, now I have to spend this much money just to support this product. It's crazy. And it just feels like WWE is going in that direction. They are going in that direction. The question is, when's it going to stop? Now, the other side of this coin that we need to address, Chris, is WWE's recent platforming of what can only be described as controversial celebrities. Mostly those with right-wing leanings, but even the likes of Travis Scott. And when you couple that with recent comments made by Paul Levesque and Roman Reigns this week about the current president, suddenly, for the first time in 725 episodes of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, we have to have some type of politics-adjacent discussion on this show. Yay. And please understand, we're only doing this because it's been such a hot topic this week, okay? And we're going to do it briefly. Wrestling, like most sports, has historically been owned by conservatives. But there's always been a significant portion of this fan base that has been liberal. For a long time, even when they were doing the Rock the Vote stuff back in the day, WWE mostly stayed away from politics as much as possible on air so as not to alienate its audience and perhaps talent as well. And while it may not be fully diving into those waters, at least not yet, some of us have seen what happened with UFC and how that has only gotten more and more political. And it feels like WWE is at least dipping its toe into all of this, given the people that they're platforming. And it's especially because it's almost to a person at this point. That's not even counting the McMahon family ties, Reigns actually speaking about this topic in a Variety interview, and the blatant leanings of those in TKO. It's a concerning trend, particularly given having different politics is one thing, but what those different politics mean in 2025 is quite another. Now, CM Punk, right before we taped the show, he did speak out to the opposite end. And to be fair, all but one of those comments was made because an interview actually asked questions. It's not like they're being offered up. But still, these comments are a far cry from WWE personnel simply staying out of it in the past. And again, Chris, when you couple it with the celebrities they're platforming, it speaks to an effort at a minimum to court a certain demographic. And this bothers me for two primary reasons. One, sure, on a personal basis, my own political leanings and what's happening in this country, but also simply as a WWE viewer. When I tune into Raw or SmackDown or WrestleMania, I do that so I can tune out all this other shit that's going on around me. I don't want that invading this. You know what I mean?
So actually, speaking of WrestleMania 9, I went back and watched the show, and they like shout out a Bill Clinton impersonator. Like they pretend it's Bill Clinton just showing up, and there's like politics has been like alluded to in many different things. I remember there was that Raw, I think, where like Hillary Clinton and Obama maybe, or McCain, I think, like did like promos, called in promos, stuff like that. But obviously over the last 10 years, politics has become a much more hot button issue than it has ever been in our lifetimes. And the only thing I can't understand about all of this is why are you even saying anything? Like, what has changed where previously, again, when Vince owned the company and Linda was in the cabinet, they did not talk about politics. They did not touch that whatsoever. I don't understand why now this year, Roman Reigns and Triple H and whoever suddenly feel like, you know what? I am going to say something about it. Like what has changed where they feel like, is it because they feel like the election went a certain way where now they feel like they can say it and it's fine? I don't know. But even over the 4 months of this presidency, opinion has changed because of what's going on economically.
Right.
So whatever, look, I'm not going to Roman Reigns for my political leanings. You know, like I don't care.
And sorry to interrupt you. To be fair, Reigns was asked about that in January, not in April. So just that not that it changes anything, but things are different even now than they were in April. I mean, in January.
Fair enough. I didn't catch that. Fair enough.
I know.
Totally. But I don't know why anyone feels the need to say anything. Just ignore the conversation. Why are you even talking about it? And all I can think about is because the other part of TKO, which is UFC, has brazenly opened with it, and Dana White's involved in the administration, and Trump comes to UFC events. Like, they have very much embraced that, to the complete opposite where WWE has always tried to stay away from that stuff. So I've just found it a fascinating dynamic that now maybe it's just the TKO part of it seeping in. We're like, all right, like our bosses are okay with this, so like we're going to speak out about it more. I don't like it. I don't think anybody really likes it. I'm not taking political cues from any of these people. I just, like you said, I don't want to know, man. I don't care. I just want to like talk about wrestling and see these guys talk about wrestling.
Yeah. So I just want to watch my stupid entertainment show and then criticize it here on the podcast. Like that's all I want to do. I don't want to have this really, conversation.
It's really to WWE's credit over the last 10 years that they have stayed out of it. Like they're one of the few places that really, really has. And I think that's a reason it has increased in popularity. It truly has worked as an escape, while UFC has gone the opposite direction. And so for WWE to like kind of like lean back toward that way to what UFC is doing, I just don't think it's good business.
It's terrible business is what it is, especially for wrestling. UFC, you could say, okay, if the majority of the audience is that, then you could probably get away with it. And I probably believe that's true. That is not the case with professional wrestling. It is not the case with WWE. Never has been. Okay, it's been a conservative company with a liberal audience for an extended period of time. Yeah, of course, conservatives also watch WWE. I'm not saying they don't, but
it's a very mixed audience.
It
is
is
the beauty of it.
Mixed in terms of race, gender, sexuality, age, everything. Every single category you want to throw in there. Everyone is a professional wrestling fan, and you only stand to hurt your business and turn people off by getting involved in politics, whether it's on screen or whether it's off screen. And I'll just tell you personally, I'm forgetting the exact event because I so don't care about UFC. But for work, occasionally I had to watch and cover it. There was an event probably earlier this year, maybe end of 2024, where something happened or someone was mentioned many, many times and shown many times, where I went on social media, not that I took a fucking stand or anything like that, but I said, this is my series finale of UFC. I will never watch it again after this. And I haven't. And that product, by the way, has gotten worse and worse and worse by the month and by the year based on decisions that TKO, previously Endeavor, and UFC and its owner and its CEO, Dana White, decisions that they've made. And, when WWE was up for sale, and we pretty much said anyone that owns this company will be better than the Saudis, right? Which was the rumor, is yes. They might do it. As much distaste as I have for Saudi Arabia and the blood money and the sand stuff and all the stuff we are joke serious about here on the podcast, I'm starting to wonder if maybe they weren't the worst owners for the company.
No, come on.
No, they were.
Saudi Arabia killed a person.
No, come on. I'm being facetious. Okay. I'm just trying to have a little fun at the end of this conversation.
Yeah. So I think it's just, for a lot of casual people who know of wrestling, these political headlines are the main thing they are seeing during WrestleMania week, and that is not good for business.
It is not good for business. It's not good for anyone. So let's go and move off this finally and talk about other stuff. As mentioned, Reigns was profiled on Variety. He's one of the people who made a political comment. And beyond that topic, perhaps the second most notable thing that he said was that he has 1 year left on his WWE contract, which is set to expire after WrestleMania 42. And he only plans to wrestle 1 or 2 additional years beyond that. Now, he's going to be 42 years old in 3 years, which these days is quite young to stop wrestling. For comparison, CM Punk, Randy Orton, Sheamus, and The Miz, just to name a few, they're all way beyond that age right now. They're all 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. So I guess there's 2 conversation topics. Whether we believe he's going to stop at that juncture, and then what the future holds for him outside of wrestling. Regarding the former, Chris, there's this trite notion people have when it comes to wrestlers at the top of their career when they say, well, what else is there for them to do? In other words, they've accomplished so much. They've won championships. They've locked up Royal Rumbles. What other accolades are out there for them to achieve? People don't really say that about athletes. Michael Jordan didn't win 3 championships, with commentary being like, well, why should he keep playing? He's already won 3 titles. Well, because he can win 6. That's why. With Roman, his leukemia is obviously a complicating factor. But the fact that he's basically a part-timer at this point, it says to me there's no need for him to completely stop wrestling at 42. He could easily come back for one-offs while doing whatever else he wants, and I presume he will, because everyone else has done that, including Rock, Cena, and Batista most recently. What I'm basically saying is, I don't see him separating from WWE even if he signs that 2-year extension and goes all the way through it, particularly because he's doing the best work of his entire career. He's actually establishing his legacy now in the back half of his career. And if you could show up and make $10 million and do 2 events, why wouldn't you do that?
Right. I don't see him doing 1 or 2 more years and stopping cold like John Cena. I mean, we don't even believe that John Cena is actually retiring and won't ever show up like he says he does, because everybody comes back and does something. And yeah, he'd wrestle 1, 2, do a Mania thing, do a SummerSlam thing. Like, yeah, I'm not expecting a hard out for Roman Reigns in the next couple of years.
The other topic regarding Reigns leaving WWE is that he said he wants to move into another less physical form of entertainment. The Variety feature obviously compared him to The Rock and Jason Momoa, and Reigns said he wanted to approach his acting career like Quentin Tarantino does directing, picking and choosing only the best stuff for himself. And sure, like, that's every actor's goal, but dude is going to be in for a rude awakening here. First of all, if he was going to be up for similar roles to those guys, he would already have some of them. He's had none. To this point, he's had bit parts, almost cameos, in Hobbs and Shaw because of his cousin. and The Wrong Missy, which is a movie you listening to the show probably don't even know what it's about. Momoa's 45.
I don't.
It's actually pretty funny shit. Pretty funny movie. Momoa's 45. He's been a big time actor for 13 years, since he was 32. Reigns is just getting into the game way later. He's closer to the Batista track. But Dave did a lot of crap before he landed Guardians of the Galaxy, and he didn't even get a quality role after that until 3 full years after that first movie came out. He did the sequel in between. He's still not picking and choosing his stuff. He's in some quality films. They're hardly high cinema. Everyone knows The Rock's track. Cena struggled massively for a long time until he finally figured out, I just got to do action comedy. That's what my role is. So yeah, it's one thing to say all this, Roman. It's quite another to actually be able to do it. The way WWE and TKO are set up right now, he's probably better positioned than any of those other guys were to get off to a hot start. But if he was really in that high of a demand, given all the time he's already been taking off, he would already be doing some acting. And guess what? He's not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't have nearly a stronger reaction to that comment.
I thought you would, because you're a movie guy like I am. I thought you'd have a very strong reaction to it.
I mean, I'm not surprised that he would feel very confident about his opportunities, even if they're not there.
Do you think he's going to be able to pick and choose his roles like Quentin Tarantino does his directing?
No, but I'm also not surprised he would say that. I think it helps that, the connection with The Rock, basically, owning production companies and stuff like that, gives another leg up. Not to say pick and choose, but
think about all the movies Rock did. I mean, come on, it's little crappy movies.
The Rock also hosted Saturday Night Live,
right?
When he was doing wrestling,
and so he still had to go through all that pain.
Yeah, Roman's comment is a poor reading of the situation, but go for it, man. Whatever.
I'm just saying he's fooling himself if he thinks he's just going to walk into like a major franchise.
I agree.
Or, that's all I'm trying to say. Speaking of Reigns, look, this dude has done more work building his character and tangentially this match on social media over the last 4 days than he did the last 2 months combined. I don't know if you saw any of it, but if this guy wasn't going to be on TV regularly, he at least could have taken a page from Rock and actually cut some promos or aired some videos on social media like he has been doing the last few days. Just wanted to throw that out there. John Cena got profiled by the New York Times, your company's parent company, Chris, and the vast majority of it was positive. Of course, as was the case with many WWE interviews this week, Cena failed when asked what it's like to be retiring without Vince McMahon around because he was so integral in his career. Here's his quote. I don't care who hears it. I love Vince. I'm not downplaying anything that needs to be decided or allegations of any kind, but when I love somebody, I love them wholeheartedly. I know people are going to be angry about that, but they can't put their value on my relationship with somebody I love. Yee. I understand the idea of supporting your friends when they go through tough times. McMahon was allegedly involved in immensely heinous shit. Not once, for decades, involving different people. How did PR not coach him up on a better answer? The likes of, I have deep concerns about what he is alleged to have done, but we do have a long-term friendship, and it's been difficult to parse the two. My PR knowledge, Chris, extends to it being my major in college. Silver King fun fact right there. Even I know how to answer a question better than that. That's a total own goal by Cena right there. Real bad look.
Again, I don't know why people feel like it's just fine to say this. So I don't care who hears it. I love Vince. It's not a quote you want out there with your name. I'm not saying disown him as a friend or publicly, some people, Cena should come out and publicly blah, 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 Vince and disown him and all that stuff. I'm not going to tell what somebody else should do for their friend. Someone who basically set them up for this life-changing career and money they had. Like, if a very close friend of yours does something bad, you can still support them without being like, I don't care who hears it. I love this person. There's a line, there's a spectrum of answers here. And so,
I have grave concerns about a close friend I love, what they have supposedly done. That's again, the
only person in WWE who has ever said the right thing about this is Cody after that Rumble last year. He's the only person.
No, Seth Rollins has also. That's not fair.
Oh, I guess I haven't seen Seth.
Yeah.
But the Cody one always jumped out.
It did. No, he nailed it. He nailed it. Yeah, he nailed it at a press conference in front of people who were rabid for an answer. And it was immediately after Triple H failed, or before Triple H failed, whatever the case. A couple interesting lines from Seth Rollins this week, speaking of him. I'll just throw them all together here, Chris. He said the likes of the go home for Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton work because conflict has been created, even if not purposeful. And we are now far more interested in this match than we otherwise would have been. That's pretty much what we talked about the last 2 weeks. It got messy and it got good, even if that was not the plan. So credit on them to leaning into it. He also said he wants to see Reigns versus The Rock. He would even book the match himself. That way, A, people can stop talking about it, and B, fans can get what they deserve. He said this sarcastically. Basically, he was pointing out it's going to be two guys in the ring doing a bunch of aura farming, not actually putting on an entertaining wrestling match. And I actually believe that to be a completely fair point. We talk about how much we want Reigns Rock. The match itself, it's probably not going to be good from a wrestling standpoint. Probably closer to Rock and Hogan, but I don't even think it'll have the aura that did.
No, because those guys could. I mean, Rock was still in the full-time heat of his prime at that point. And those are two of the best to ever do it. And The Rock's not the same. Obviously, also, we haven't seen The Rock do a singles match since WrestleMania 29.
Right.
You know, last year, he looked good last year.
He did. He looked great last year.
Yeah, but it was a tag match. So, you know, it is kind of crazy to remember. Hulk Hogan back then at WrestleMania 18, was he like mid to late 40s at that point?
Yeah, there's a lot of forgetting about like Hogan's actual age because he was obviously bald for so long and he dyed his hair for so long.
Yeah.
Even Ric Flair, when he was wrestling for a while, you're like, man, what was he, 60 wrestling? No, he was like 45.
No. Yeah. So it's different. Again, I said this before. Cody has said it too. I think Rock Hogan is the greatest wrestling match of all time. I think it's everything that pro wrestling is about, for good and bad.
Yeah.
And I love it. I rewatch it all the time.
So WWE representatives and talent have done a lot of major media interviews this week. Just like last year, plenty was said. Plenty has generated headlines, primarily within the world of wrestling. And candidly, you know, if you consider wrestling its own industry, many of them were frankly bad looks for WWE when it comes to allowing the company to appeal to wrestling fans. I have seen some people blow this up thinking they're bad PR for WWE outside the insular walls of wrestling. That I simply do not believe. With the exception of those John Cena comments, really, which are going to permeate outside of WWE, the rest of what we're going to discuss below, it's really just wrestling centric. The casual fan doesn't really give a shit about any of that. And I believe the IWC has been working itself into a frenzy to have like a hate boner for WWE this week, which is incredibly interesting considering where things stood exactly 1 year ago. It almost seems to a degree like a concerted effort in some cases from certain outlets and certain people who believe themselves to be like tastemakers on social media because they're not only pulling out short quotes from long interviews, but in many cases, removing context from those comments so they sound worse in a silo than they would be in the greater context of a conversation or an answer to a question. Now, Chris, you and I know this because we work in sports media. If a talent does an hour-long sit-down interview, they might speak positively and interestingly for 55, 56, 57 minutes. But those 3 minutes of saying something controversial or off-putting, that's all that's going to get picked up. The rest usually gets ignored. Or if they spend 5 minutes on a topic even, 45 seconds of an answer might get cut out and they remove the other 4 minutes and 15 seconds of what they said. So to be fair in our coverage, I painstakingly, and I mean painstakingly, because most of these were drab and repetitive, but I listened to all of these interviews and I picked up choice topics for us to discuss in this space, some of which blew up this week. I do want to say one more thing. This is the second year in a row where in the lead up to WrestleMania, there's a level of controversy, even if it's not far-reaching outside of wrestling, because the stuff that I'm seeing hit are the hits on SportsCenter, GQ, Billboard, Vanity Fair, New York Times. Hot Ones did really big. The Cold as Balls show, which I didn't even know was a thing until I watched it. Those are the ones that I'm seeing permeating, not these podcast interviews that are creating controversy within the IWC. If you remember going into WrestleMania last year, there was some controversial stuff said, primarily from CM Punk and Triple H a little bit. You don't really see that happen in the lead up to the Super Bowl or the Olympics or the Masters or other major events. The idea is to have positive vibes going in, not have people foaming at the mouth about one thing or another. Whether that's a strategy or it's a circumstance of what was said, it's really tough to say, but it has been noticeable internally in the IWC, not so much externally in all this major media. How does that, how do you feel that?
Real quick.
Yeah, I was going to ask
I would just disagree with that because we just spent the last 20 minutes talking about controversial stuff that wrestlers said in mainstream interviews that got picked up by casual people.
One.
There's separate from that stuff gets picked
We
up
spoke
elsewhere.
about we spoke about one of those.
A lot of the stuff we're about to talk about here does not.
That's the point. So one thing that we spoke about really permeated, and that was John Cena in the New York Times. The Roman Reigns one sentence comment in a Vanity Fair profile at the bottom of like a 5,000 word piece. Look, how many people are reading Vanity Fair? They're really not. Okay. So it was the one John Cena comment that permeated. All these other ones really didn't. But yes, this is what I'm talking about. The stuff that we're about to cover are the ones that some of them are normal positive comments. Others are specific ones that created controversy. These are the ones that the IWC's foaming at the mouth about, and some are exaggerating and taking out of context. Everything else we talked about was very straightforward, I guess is pretty much the best way I can explain it. So rather than go interview by interview, we're going to go person by person. And we're going to start with Paul Levesque, who was not only interviewed on High Potential, which is, I guess, a podcast that existed I didn't know about, but also
high performance.
Is it Did I mess up the name? All right. I apologize to those guys.
Potential.
And no, I thought that's what it was called. I apologize to those guys. High Performance. Also did an hour-long sit-down interview on WWE's own YouTube channel, which was mostly his like 10-minute per question filibustering. It also just became obvious watching that why WWE won't let Triple H speak with like an actual wrestling media outlet like this one because of the questions we might ask and the way he might answer them. So let's go ahead and go through some of what Triple H had to say. On Jey Uso, he said it's the right time for him in the main event because fans said so, and 2/3 of the best wrestlers of all time are not the best in-ring workers. I agree with the former sentiment, not necessarily the latter, especially over the last 25 years. So many of the best and most popular wrestlers in the modern era are great in-ring competitors. That said, to be fair to Jey, I don't believe anyone is actually asking for him to be considered among the best. But Triple H's larger point was fair, and it's one we've made multiple times here. Fan interest, crowd connection, charisma, all of that is important. Wrestlers should not only be pushed based on in-ring ability. Plus, Jey isn't actually bad in the ring. He's just not amazing.
No. What did I just say? I just said Rock Hulk Hogan is one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time.
Right.
It was not for great ring work. That's not what it's about.
Yeah, I don't think if you asked him about Hulk Hogan, he would say he was a great wrestler. No, Triple H is getting clowned for this. I thought it was a reasonable answer to the question.
Yeah, it's about business, like in ring work is important, but it only takes you so far. That's not the most important thing. That's
Exactly.
fine. That's the history of pro wrestling.
Exactly. On the John Cena heel turn, Levesque said 3 total people on creative, including himself, Cena, Cody Rhodes, The Rock, and Travis Scott. Those were the only ones who knew. And Cena didn't know Scott was going to get physical like he did. Really no surprises there. Regarding Travis Scott, Nick Khan said that I guess The Rock told him to just lay it in, and he did. And Cody was okay with it. And that's pretty much it. Triple H said, quote, "This will sound offensive. I wish people could F off being a critic and be a fan. His comparison point being sitting in the dark and enjoying a movie, or sitting with a pad and pen, noting what you do and don't like about a film as it's happening and how that ruins the entertainment value of it. Plus, people who try to report on story points before they happen are actively ruining the fun for everyone and lessening their enjoyment. Basically, he doesn't want people to be setting themselves up for disappointment." This may have been the least controversial thing said by anyone this week as far as I'm concerned. He's 100% correct. Now, we have our responsibility as a podcast to analyze and respectfully criticize WWE, AEW, wherever, both for what happens on screen and off screen. Others do as well. But fans, people who are not creating content, you have the option in terms of how you consume the product. And if I was a fan, I would only consume content after the fact, not before. Avoiding spoilers, not setting up unfair expectations, all that type of stuff. And to be fair to us, Chris, I feel like we do a really nice job with our analysis in that we criticize what's necessary and we project based on what we think will happen. Plus, we tell you what we want to happen. But we do regularly point out, just because expectations are not reality does not mean something is inherently bad or lesser than. But Triple H being head of product, I really don't blame him for thinking this way at all.
No, I mean, it's saying don't be a whatever, be a fan. Like, I understand why people who do that would then be upset about that, which is most of the internet wrestling community. Like, but that's also his job. I'm sure every movie director is like, just be a fan. Don't whatever about my movie. That's fine. And then the spoiler storyboard stuff, I hate that. I've always hated it. It's why we don't talk about the dirt sheet rumors on this show, because what's the point? I don't want to know. It's not real. Like, the wrestling is not real. So I would like to get the story that is supposed to be told to me in the way it is supposed to be told to me. It's not like, this isn't like, look, if somebody's injured and they can't make a thing, whatever, that's a little bit different. But if like, oh, the plan was for this person to get into a story with this person, or the person going to feud with this person next, I don't want to know that. And I don't understand why people do want it, but there is a big audience for that. And so there are people out there who meet that demand, and that's their job, and that's fine. But that's also a small percentage of the audience.
And also, could you imagine like watching a movie, to his point, and being like, man, I really wish like at the 90-minute mark, Kaiser Soze limped a little bit. That way we had an inkling of what was going to come in the surprise ending of the movie. Like, no, you would never say that, right? So like when you're in charge of creative and you're head of a product like this, that is a completely fair opinion to have. And sure, he said it in a way that was meant to kind of rankle people a little bit, but I'm okay with that. Like, again, we do our job here on the podcast. We analyze, we criticize after the fact. If you want bookings spoiled for you and that's what brings you enjoyment as a wrestling fan, then, I mean, go ahead and seek that stuff out. But like, I would, if I was a fan, I would watch the show and then I would listen to our podcast. This is what these guys think about it. It's not what I thought. I disagree with them, or I completely agree. They make great points. And then Friday I watch the show and then I listen to the podcast. I would not ahead of time be like listening to people say, well, you know, with Raw on Monday night, if they don't do this, this, and this, it's going to be terrible and they should pivot and this is going to be awful. Let it play out a little bit. And if it's good, then great. And if it's not, then I'm going to say it's not as a fan. That's it.
You know who's big into spoilers is my wife. And I don't understand it. And it's a point of contention
for movies too,
where she will read the Wikipedia plot of a movie before we go see the movie.
Boo.
I don't understand it.
That is terrible.
I think she feels like she might be too stressed, not knowing, or like worried about whatever. I'm like, I don't know, man. It bothers me so much.
Oh, I hate if I even get I hate when trailers spoil stuff for movies.
I don't watch a lot of.
I try not to. Yeah.
For like the Marvel movies, I'll watch the first trailer because I know it's going to be everywhere
the teaser
on my timeline, and I can't avoid it. But I will avoid the rest of them. And my brother does the same thing. He doesn't watch the trailers.
Yep.
I know the kind of, if I'm gonna go, I know I'm gonna go watch this movie. I don't want to know anything about it going in.
If it's a movie I know I'm going to see, I will do everything I can to avoid everything except the teaser. Like the Superman movie, I'm not even a big DC guy, but I saw the teaser. I go, this looks great. I'm going to see it. I will not watch another thing until I see it. That's it.
Yes, I set up muted terms on my Twitter as well to try to avoid it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. Triple H also criticized old timers who run podcasts where they break kayfabe and give away all the secrets from the past, yet criticize people for not keeping kayfabe in 2025. I actually found this to be a little bit hypocritical, just because of what we talked about. Sharing secrets and stuff when it's over and in the past, that's okay. But you can simultaneously say, look, this is what happened back in the day and how it all worked out 20 years ago. But presently, I don't like the way that, something can happen on TV and then The Rock can show up at a press conference immediately and break kayfabe. Those are completely different things as far as I'm concerned. He also said that fans need to be patient and stop calling for WWE to immediately pivot if it seems a storyline isn't going the way they want because they don't know where it's going, and that, over the years, some fans have called things pivots that actually were not. It's just them being worked. Again, I don't mind a creative lead saying that, but at the same time, WrestleMania 40 was so successful because of a blatant pivot, and fans told them they needed to do that. So yes, I think there is a distinction between a hard pivot like that and people calling for a pivot in a situation like Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble, when clearly that's not a universal opinion. We want Cody was a universal opinion. So these didn't completely line up for me, but I at least get his perspective.
Yeah, on the first part about the breaking kayfabe, I'm always torn in these situations where, like, as the media member and as the reporter, I want you to say and reveal everything because that's good for our job. But as the fan, I don't want you to. Like, again, do what The Undertaker did. He kept kayfabe for 30 years and then he stopped. And then he talked about everything and turned it into a whole thing. Like, Yeah, I agree. It is hypocritical.
Like if Bully Ray wants to talk about the mechanics behind TLC in 2025, okay. And then if he wants to, I'm just using him as one example. And then if he wants to criticize the fact that, like, you know, Jey Uso and Gunther, there's video of them hugging backstage after Jey beats him at WrestleMania, 12 hours later, that's legitimate criticism.
Yes.
Yep. I don't see any issue with that. Triple H addressed the triple threat booking. Here's what he said, quote, "Normally, when there's nothing on the line, triple threats to me are a bit odd. This one was a gamble. And it was a very calculated gamble on the fact that you have three talents at the top of their game, arguably at the peak of their careers, that all have an interaction that is undeniable when you dig into it. This WrestleMania build is slightly weird because there's an additional 2 weeks, and you had all these other shows. Usually, you just put your foot on the gas, and 2 weeks out from WrestleMania, you kind of feel like you're already there. What's interesting about this triple threat to me is you have Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, who arguably have more history than anyone else in the country. You add Punk into that equation, a guy they were sort of brought in to be with. He leaves. A lot of people feel abandoned. He also acknowledged that all of them could have had individual feuds for WrestleMania, but that can all be done after the fact. The triple threat is not the definitive end of the story, perhaps just the beginning. And that is precisely what I was saying before this match was booked and why I was into WWE running it as a triple threat in this situation. It's a jumping off point for singles matches and storylines in all three combinations. That's also what we discussed on the Ultimate Preview, Chris. WrestleMania 41 in many ways being a jumping off point rather than a culmination like 40. It felt like a series finale to that era. And I do believe he has a point about the extended runtime stretching it out, what would have been a tighter and hotter build. But I maintain, and we said this on the Ultimate Preview as well, they knew all of this in advance. They knew they had this time. So it's not a legitimate excuse. They could have landed this storyline and built it better, factoring in all that additional time. Instead, they just said, well, we have a few extra weeks, so these weeks we're not going to do as much. That was not appropriate. I understand Netflix came in and Saturday Night's Main Event and all these other things that they had to deal with, but you knew those were all beats that were going to happen. They had to be creative and book around those things.
Yeah, they just haven't done a great job. And whatever the circumstances are, it's your job. So deal with that. And I will say, WWE has started to put up some of the video packages on YouTube and social media. I watched, it's like a 5-minute one for this triple threat match. And I got to tell you, man, did not get me super hyped for it because there's not really a through line of the story. There's Rollins and Reigns as part of the story, but then CM Punk's also there with Heyman, and Punk's just saying it's just about business for me. And there's not a through line to the story, and there hasn't been the whole time. And I was very surprised. I think the vignette, the video package kind of hit it home with me, which is just like, you can't tell this story in 10 seconds. And with the best feuds, you can. Naomi attacked Jade because she was jealous, and now they're fighting. John Cena wants title number 17. He's doing whatever it takes to beat Cody. You can't do that with this feud, and that's why it's been difficult.
It is immensely complicated. And you know what? I appreciated, though, that he pointed out that it was risky, and they're aware of that, and that it is weird to do it this way, but they believe it's going to work long term. And we're only going to know if that's the case after the match is over, and certainly probably in the next calendar year to see what happens with Rollins and Punk and Reigns. And we will certainly be addressing that right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Triple H said collaborating with CM Punk is his favorite part, or one of his favorite parts of weekly TV these days. He detailed the situation where Punk told other people he didn't like a certain creative. Triple H asked him about it. Punk said it's fine, I'll do it. Triple H told him to be honest, and that broke down any remaining wall that existed between them. Now they collaborate a lot. Given their prior animosity, that's one of those, like, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall situations for that conversation. But if that's true and they're getting along creatively, then that's only positive, obviously, for Punk, but also for WWE.
That's great. We've always known they're two of the smartest minds in the business, and that's why they often clash so much. So to kind of put the egos aside to work on that's what you want in any workplace.
Exactly. Triple H also spoke about Cody and Cena. He said the goal is basically to, quote, emotionally deliver moments you never thought you would see. There will be moments within this match that for the next 10, 15 years, people will be talking about, unquote. He also said the match will be a stamp on both of their careers, Cena in the Hogan role and Rhodes in the Rock role. Of course, not exactly parallel. I don't have much else to say about this, but it was noteworthy that he said as much as he did right there about the match. So that kind of raises expectations for what they're going to do in the ring.
Yeah, certainly. By the way, most of these comments and quotes I have not heard until you're telling them to me right now. So that amps up the expectations completely, and frankly, to a shocking degree.
Yeah.
in a way that you may be making expectations too high for me now.
And by the way, proof that what I said earlier is true, that this didn't really permeate the IWC, some of these comments. If you didn't hear them, and you're involved and we're doing the show. Triple H spoke about how his creative and booking philosophy is different from Vince McMahon. He obviously spoke about Vince's controlling nature and how it got worse with age. He said he hopes that with his talent, if they disagree with him, they do what he asks. And if it works, they admit as much. But conversely, if it doesn't work, he will say to them, my bad, I got that one wrong. The idea being that embracing right and wrong is important. And I got to tell you, man, that really resonated with me. It's something I say all the time at work. Just because I'm telling you how to do something doesn't mean I'm right. However, with my experience and knowledge, it is what I believe to be the best. If I am right, you need to be able to admit that and learn from it. If I am wrong, I will be the first person to say, my bad, and either that we should have done it your way, or the next time we should go and try something else.
Yeah, I was going to say that's exactly what the role of an editor of any boss is. And again, the fact that Triple H was a wrestler in that position creates that dynamic. That's what you would want from any boss.
You can trust him more than others, right? Just like you and I, not you, you're still a writer, but I was a writer for a while. I became an editor. I understand what writers think and how they act and what they want. And it is exactly the Triple H situation. Now let's move off of him. I want to just say shame on WWE for making me listen to a Bill Simmons podcast to hear an interview with Nick Khan. I cannot speak to the quality of his show because as a New York sports fan, mostly, I've never been able to stand listening to him. And frankly, this was rather brutal, particularly the way he didn't contest anything Khan said at any point during this interview. It was just pure agreement for 90 minutes. I'm being facetious slightly because I don't have anything against him personally, but this is a show I never would have listened to under any circumstances, except for the fact that Khan was on it. Khan said it would be ideal for WWE to build stars from India, Brazil, and Mexico. Obviously, the Mexico portion is covered, not only by Penta and Rey Fenix, but if WWE actually uses all the guys inside Legado del Fantasma and LWO to their real capabilities, they already have the talent. They just need to develop and feature it. And that's long been a frustration that they have not done enough with those guys. Asked whether AEW is a rival, Khan said WWE always feels like it is an underdog. He also said there are a lot of talented wrestlers there, and it's fair to expect some of them will come over when their contracts expire. Then he threw a jab, saying he has a lot of respect for the father who owns the Jaguars and finances it. I just found that to be extremely unnecessary as something to say. Now look, it is clear that Tony has taken shots, some of them directly at Nick over the years, but you would expect if you're Nick Khan, you're the CEO of WWE, that you're going to allow those to slide off your back, especially if you've already made comments at Tony previously. You can still be the bigger man. And here he absolutely was not.
Yeah, why are you punching down? What's the point of it?
Yeah.
I don't understand it. The comment about there are some wrestlers over there who will come over here when their contract ends. That's a weird thing to say, and it's tampering, but it very much would just create the illusion of tampering to say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's also factual. Like, if he had just added, and I'm sure when their contracts expire here, some of our wrestlers will go over there. Like, that's just going to happen.
Just say, I'm sure they're, when their wrestlers are out of their contracts, we might have conversations with some of them.
Yeah.
Like, unnecessarily, like,
antagonistic, right? He was antagonistic for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very odd. Now, the controversial part of this interview, it came next when Khan said WWE does not want to sign people to not use them. They don't want to bench wrestlers, which is something that has happened in the past. And certain people have pounced on this comment, which I found understandable to a degree, just not the level to which people are going after Khan for saying this. And this needs to be made clear. In this context, the definition of benching talent means signing wrestlers or not allowing wrestlers to do X, Y, or Z, despite having no intent to use them. Intent. And this is also another organization cannot sign them. The reason why Khan's comment is hypocritical is because WWE has benched some talent. The greatest example right now is probably Omos, who they allowed to go over. He did an excursion with Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan. He got massively over. He even won a title. And then they just called him back. He vacated his title, and he has not been on TV once. Now, Omos does WWE events outside the ring. He was at the Royal Rumble. My buddies got to meet him at a WWE event. He is doing events for WrestleMania this week. So he is around, but he's not at all being used on TV ever. Natalya is similar. She got re-signed. Some believe re-signed just so she did not go to AEW because she wanted to compete in the Owen over there. But she just got used for the first or second time since re-signing like last week. But what irks me, Chris, is that certain talking heads are using other names as examples of benching. Andrade. He's being used on TV regularly, and he doesn't want to be in AEW. Sheamus.
Yeah, right.
He's been featured all the time, but he's been cycled out the last couple of months because he doesn't have a WrestleMania program. Alexa Bliss. There were solid creative plans for her that WWE delayed due to Bo Dallas being injured. We just talked about that. Now, did it make any sense for them to do that? It's tough to say until it happens, but it's a factual situation. Other examples I saw out there, Baron Corbin, AOP, wrestlers like that. WWE did not sign AOP to keep them from going to AEW. They signed them and weren't creatively able to get them on television. Baron Corbin, they had him and he was working in NXT and they brought him back to the main roster. And like 2 weeks later, they released him because they realized we don't actually have anything for him. There's a huge difference between creative not using someone or not being able to use someone for an extenuating reason and signing people or keeping them under contract specifically so they don't go anywhere else. So yes, Khan was hypocritical here, but not anywhere to the degree that people are stating. And what WWE certainly has not done in this regime or even lately is hold people to contracts against their will. They released Toni Storm the second she asked for it years ago, and she's not the only one in that case. Furthermore, and I'll end on this, that way you can get in, Chris, what we and many wrestling fans have been saying for years is that WWE and AEW, they have such large rosters. They should cycle through talent on occasion and give them time off, especially the older wrestlers. Well, if Sheamus or The Miz don't have a program for 3 months, or Shinsuke Nakamura, but then they're used regularly the 3 months after that, that's cycling through talent. Not everyone can be used all the time. Not everyone should be used all the time. So does Khan deserve some criticism here? Yeah, he does. But the way that people have taken this comment and exploded it is absolutely ridiculous.
Here's what I don't understand, and with most of these IWC things, what's the problem? Even if they did sign and bench talent, who cares? What's the controversy here? What am I missing?
Well, the controversy is that you're, signing people with the express intent of not using them.
Is it implying that they essentially lied to these wrestlers?
Yes, it's nefarious. Yes,
for them?
That's nefarious.
Because when they did re-sign a bunch of people when AEW launched, and like Matt Hardy's talked about this and Matt Cardona's talked about this, like it was very like obvious that they just didn't want them to go over there. Like you can read the tea leaves. Like it's not like they're not holding up financial promises that they made to them. It's not like they're firing people after they said they weren't going to or stuff like that. So I don't know. And I think we've seen plenty of it from the AEW side with Ricky Starks and all that, where it's
of course,
whatever.
I mean, they've taken people off of TV and expressly not used them.
Unrelated. I'm watching McAfee right now, and in the background they have that you can do the entrances of the wrestlers when you go to WWE World. Mm-hmm. It's a really fun thing. You pick somebody, you can do their entrance. Someone just did Joe Hendry. I would not even have guessed that they had that in the system.
Joe Hendry is signing autographs at WWE World.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How about that? TNA wrestlers in the WWE World at WrestleMania. What a world we live in.
What a freaking world. Well, folks, look, that wraps up this bonus WWE WrestleMania 41 edition of the podcast, and we went even longer than the Silver King expected because we always seem to do that. You and I really like to talk, and we really like to talk about professional wrestling, which is what makes doing this podcast so fun. So just look, a reminder for everyone here coming out. You have your WWE WrestleMania 41 Ultimate Preview and your NXT Stand and Deliver Ultimate Preview episodes already in the podcast feed. Make sure you listen to those, especially NXT Stand and Deliver right before the show, early Saturday. And of course, WWE WrestleMania. We have timestamps in that one for night 1 and night 2. So if you want a refresher or you want to listen to it in parts on Saturday and Sunday, you certainly have the option to do that. We will have not one, not two, but 3 instant analysis podcasts coming your way this weekend. Saturday afternoon, NXT Stand and Deliver. Saturday night and Sunday night, WWE WrestleMania 41. As soon as those shows go off the air, we're hopping on the horn. We're telling you exactly what we thought about all of those. And we wrap up WrestleMania week on Tuesday with a WWE episode, The Raw After WrestleMania, WrestleMania 41 Fallout. Questions and comments from all of you, and perhaps some quotes and conversation topics coming out of these additional interviews that we're not going to be able to watch while we were taping this show. So follow us on social media, at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky, not only for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff, but so you can vote in pre and post show polls around NXT Stand and Deliver and both nights of WWE WrestleMania 41. We will definitely utilize your thoughts and comments in those shows. And again, if you send in questions and comments during them, we'll do our best to integrate them either during the instant analysis or during the second look. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Full-length audio of every show. Full-length video interviews already too with Vic Joseph and Drew McIntyre. We anticipate having more coming out of WrestleMania. Please remember,
It's all about Defy.
leave a 5-star rating for us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. On Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we would greatly appreciate it, and we would read it here, right on the show. And lastly,
I happen to love the number 5.
hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You become an official Getting Over head. Visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show. Bonus for free, whether you subscribe or not. The fastest 15 minutes Friday night after SmackDown, the go home to WWE WrestleMania 41. Be sure to check our social media for when that gets published. Also, news analysis posts every week. We already published one of those for WrestleMania. Thank you all so much for listening to this bonus edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. For Vintage Chris Vanini, this is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.